Welcome back to Brick by Brick. Today we're going to be doing a hypothetical matchup prediction. In this case, it is going to be between the current Vice President, J.D. Vance, on the Republican side, and then on the Democratic side, we'll be going with the former Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. So Pete Buttigieg kind of rose to fame in 2020 as a presidential contender. He did fairly well, ultimately ended up endorsing Biden and coalescing behind him, but he did do fairly well, and so he's been floated as a potential 2028 presidential ticket on the Democratic side. It will be interesting to see if he actually ends up becoming the nominee. I do think that he is one of the more likely-ish candidates to become the nominee, so we'll have to see what ends up happening, but this is just going to be an interesting, for fun, hypothetical matchup between those two candidates. So I've got the safe, likely, and lean states characterized. Some of these might be many of these are based on the 2024 presidential margins, which is why, states like New Jersey aren't, likely or safe, and states like Connecticut and Rhode Island and New York are likely instead of safe. This is just because 2024 was in general a pretty poor performance for the Democratic Party on the presidential level. Harris ended up losing to Trump by a fairly significant margin. Every swing state, except for one swing district, went to Trump, and that is going to be an interesting setup to see if Democrats can overcome that and still find a way toward the magical 270 number in terms of electoral college votes. So on the West Coast here, we have the three blue Pacific Coast states of Washington, Oregon, and California. Quite a few electoral college votes. Some of the core states for the Democratic Party that unless something truly crazy happens, they are going to almost certainly be in the Democratic column. Next up, we will get to the state of Nevada. Nevada is going to be the first swing state that we'll get to. In Nevada, I do think that Pete Buttigieg definitely has some appeal with more of the moderate end of the political spectrum. So I do think that that would come to his advantage in a couple ways, and I do think that the state of Nevada would probably end up being in the Democratic column. I don't think it'll be a lean, but I am thinking I should probably characterize it as a tilt. So that is going to be 6 electoral college votes for Pete Buttigieg. Nevada is a bit of an interesting case situation. They do have a Republican governor and also did end up voting for Trump in the 2024 presidential election, which it has not done for a while. It did vote for a Republican governor prior to that. But in general, they've had a pretty consistent history of voting for the Democratic Party. They have 2 Democratic senators and 3 of the... It is slightly pretty gerrymandered, so that is part of the reason why there are so many. There are 3 Democratic congresspeople to the 1 Republican. The 3 Democrats are generally in the southern Las Vegas area, or in the southern Nevada, Las Vegas area. The Republican represents kind of basically just the rest of the state. Most of the population is there in Vegas. Anyhow, so that is going to be 6 electoral college votes for the Democrat. In the case of Arizona went to Trump by the highest margin of the main swing states that we are characterizing today, and I think it would be very difficult for Pete Buttigieg to overcome that. I do think it will narrow up. This is just going to be if the election were to be held today, and currently things are not looking very good for Trump as well, but Trump most likely, unless something crazy happens, will not be the nominee, and I do think it'll be difficult for Democrats to overcome that kind of Republican edge in the state of Arizona. The state did go to Biden in 2020, but I do think that it would probably end up in the Republican column if it were a case between these 2 presidential candidates. So that is going to be 11 electoral college votes for the Republican, J.D. Vance. So with that, the candidates are practically tied. We have 231 for the Democrat, and then 230 for the Republican. So Pete Buttigieg with a 1-vote electoral college lead, and I do think that he's going to earn another electoral college vote. I debated whether or not to do this as a lean or tilt. But I do think that the little district here in Omaha would probably end up being in the lean column. The district did go to Harris, so and that was a pretty bad showing for the Democratic Party in general. So it has been definitely known to vote for Democrats. So I do think that this district would probably end up in the Democratic column if the election were to be held today between Pete Buttigieg and J.D. Vance. But regardless, it's one electoral college vote, nothing too crazy. Could mean the difference if the states line up a certain way. But for now, that is going to be one more electoral college vote. Then let's go to the South actually first. So I do think in the state of Georgia, as I've mentioned before, Pete Buttigieg has definitely got some moderate appeal, which was a motivating factor for Biden in 2020 that ultimately helped him win the state of Georgia, as well as the Democratic Party winning the 2 Senate elections there. So I do think that Pete Buttigieg, he's probably got a shot. This is a state that I'm probably, of the ones I've characterized so far, I'm the least sure about. But for now, I do think that it would probably end up in the Democratic column, resulting in 16 electoral college votes for Pete Buttigieg. Next up, we get to the state of North Carolina. In North Carolina, I do think that the state would probably end up in the Republican column. North Carolina and Nevada are in many ways fairly similar. Politically, North Carolina predominantly elects Republicans on the presidential and Senate level, whereas Nevada predominantly elects Democrats on those 2 levels. But these 2 states have been known to elect a governor of the opposing political party, and have seen kind of fractures in their traditional Democratic support on the Nevada side versus Republican support on their North Carolinian, I don't know if that's how you say it, on the North Carolina side. So that is going to be 16 electoral college votes for the Republican candidate, J.D. Vance. And then we get to the 3 Rust Belt states here. These are really going to be the ones that determine who's going to be the president. Right now, the Democrat, Pete Buttigieg, is at 248 electoral college votes to the Republican, J.D. Vance, 246. So really close game here. I'm going to start out in the state of Wisconsin, just because I think that would probably be one of the easier ones to classify. So I do think that Wisconsin would probably end up voting for Pete Buttigieg. Both Buttigieg and Vance have some appeal here in the Rust Belt. Pete Buttigieg was initially known as the mayor in South Bend, Indiana, and Indiana is almost certainly going to be a safe Republican state, but I do think that appeal may help in the traditional swing states here in the Rust Belt, that being the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. That isn't to say that Vance doesn't also have some support. He is, of course, from the state of Ohio. He's a senator there, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I do think that Buttigieg, and I believe Buttigieg now lives in the state of Michigan. He was floated as a potential contender for a couple of statewide offices, actually, but this is going to assume that Pete Buttigieg ends up going for the presidential nomination, and so that is going to be 16 electoral college votes, 15, one fewer than Georgia and North Carolina. I do think that it would probably end up in the Democratic ticket, So with that is going to be 273 to 246, so we already know it's going to be a victory for the Buttigieg campaign. And then we really just have this one state left, the state of Pennsylvania. So this is just going to be icing on the cake for the Democratic contender, Pete Buttigieg. And I do think that the 3 Rust Belt states in this case are going to vote together. I did not mean to do that to Florida. 1 second. Here we go. Back to likely Republican. And so that is going to be 292 electoral college votes for the Democrat Pete Buttigieg to 246 for the Republican J.D. Vance. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.